The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
So a year ago, we're saying, whoa, look at this Jayden Daniels. He's tracking to be great. Tress Way, he hardly ever punts. Everything is going their way. What's happening a year later? It's not good. It's so bad, in fact, that this registers as good news, really good news, that Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel are on track to practice this week. Hey, small things in a season that is going south. Can they get it corrected? Yeah, they can. And if they win on Monday night in Kansas City, the outlook looks completely different. But it's looking bleak right now. And we'll get an update tomorrow on both Deebo and McLaurin, plus the big one, Jayden Daniels. Is he going to be able to play on Monday night, or are we going to see Marcus Mariota get his third start of the year? At the moment, the Commanders are 10.5-point underdogs. That may be with the assumption that Jayden Daniels is not going to play, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, and it's an odd week because of the Monday night, which means that usually we get an update from Dan Quinn on Wednesday. This week it's going to wait until Thursday because of the schedule, which moves everything up a day when they play on Monday night. And, this comes along with, how things work here, that if you get good in the NFL, they schedule you at times when it's not necessarily convenient for people like me who are early birds. So the next two games are going to be night games, Monday night, and that'll be followed by the Sunday night game against Seattle. And both those teams, of course, with winning records. And then you get Detroit in here. And, you're staring down the barrel of three straight losses. And if they lose all three, you're talking about a season that may be cratering before Thanksgiving. But, a lot can happen, a lot can change, and keep your head up, as they say, and let's see what happens. So, last night, this was back. And if you'd have told me yesterday, or asked me yesterday, how long has it been since the NBA was on NBC? And I would have said, I don't know, 10, 12 years? No. This is the first time that NBC televised the NBA since 2002. 23 years. And, that's what happens as you get older. The passage of time is incredible. So there are young fans maybe even in their 30s right now, who have no recollection of Ahmad Rashad and Hannah Storm and all the NBC people, Bob Costas doing games, Marv Albert. They have no memory of that. And it's just amazing because that seems like yesterday I was watching the NBA Finals on NBC. Mike Breen has traveled with the NBA. He was doing Finals games on NBC and then moved over to ESPN. But man, oh man, or ABC now, I guess, does the Finals. But that's just amazing to me that it was 3 years without Roundball Rock. And the reason you didn't hear that song is NBC owned it. John Tesh wrote the song years ago, and NBC held the rights, and I guess ABC wasn't interested in having the identity of NBC, so they didn't get it, and now it's back. And I never thought it was that great of a song, but you do associate, at least people of my age and maybe even a little bit younger, of seeing Michael Jordan doing his thing on NBC. Now, I'm so old that while everybody was waxing nostalgic last night about how great it was to watch Michael Jordan and the Bulls on NBC in the 1990s, I go back to the 80s. I'm sorry. For me, it's CBS. It's Dick Stockton doing the finals between the Lakers and the Celtics. They met 3 times, and one of the two teams was always in the finals. And so that's what I associate as the glory days of the NBA. Those were great times, and when you would talk all day about a Celtics-Lakers game and go home and watch it and be excited about every possession and all the great players and watching Bird and Magic do their thing. That's it for me. But I can understand how people younger than me would look back on the 90s, but the 90s are now kind of in the rearview mirror. And Allen Iverson, who is now, I think, 50 years old, That's amazing, too. He's got his memoir out called Misunderstood, and as part of the hype for NBC to have the NBA back last night, they scheduled Allen Iverson on the Jimmy Fallon show on NBC, even though this was after the games were played. And but they taped it earlier in the day, of course. And Iverson, who, again, is 50 years old, looks at his childhood. I remember Michael Jordan coming along in 1984. This was childhood for Allen Iverson, who came out in the 1996 draft out of Georgetown. That this was childhood nostalgia about watching Jordan play and then getting the chance to play against him.
That's all I remember. Michael Jordan.
Really?
I mean, NBC growing up, all I wanted to do was watch Mike. You know what I mean? That was my hero. He was my vision. He was the reason why everybody know who Allen Iverson is today because of him. You know what I mean? Definitely.
Here's you and Michael playing. Do you let them know that you're a fan when you're playing against them, or you go, I can't?
No, never.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't, right? Because it's
no. But you know, before the game, I sit and I remember the first time I was just staring at him and just looking at him like, that's him. You know what I mean? And
just staring at him.
Yeah, I was in. I think that was the first time I was really starstruck. But I actually, like, what I remember the most is he didn't look real to me. That was the first time I saw a human that didn't look real.
Like a hologram or like a movie?
I don't know. He just had this. I talked about it in my Hall of Fame speech. It was like he had this aura, like this orange force field around him, and it was like, I remember. Watching a show and they talked about when Rick James, that whole thing,
yes,
where it just, I saw his aura, man. Like he didn't look real.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it's like that now. Like it's so embarrassing when I'm around him. I'm still starstruck. You know what I mean? I'm embarrassing my friends. My friends got to tap me and like, Chuck, okay, man. You know what I mean? Calm down. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like you're embarrassing us.
You're Allen Iverson. Yeah, you're peers now.
And that's what they say. Like you're a superstar too. I'm like, nah, not like this.
No, I mean, look, not everyone gets to do this to their idol. Take a look at this.
This has Jordan. The crowd is into it. Allen shakes great.
Come on now! I mean, that was
crossover.
What?
Allen said yes. The bucket. The crowd loves it.
To Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Now that's different. Like he was a casualty of war. Like,
yeah.
We were competing. You know what I mean? Once the ball went up, you know what I mean. Then all of that, went away. It was time to dance.
Do people bring that up to you all the time?
Almost every day, if not every day.
Is that right?
Every day. That's how great he was. And if you think about it, on that play, he still almost blocked my shot. So
right.
That's a testament to how great he was.
Yeah. If you've seen that, and you can look it up on YouTube, the video, that's a young Allen Iverson, no tattoos, and he beats Jordan on a crossover. And probably that still makes Jordan mad to this day. But that was Allen Iverson, welcome to the NBA. Like, whoa, this guy's going to be kind of a game changer, too. Their careers overlapped, and I want to say, really, it's 2 years because, 3 years, right? 96 to 98, so 96, 97. No, 2 years. 2 years of Allen Iverson against prime Jordan, not Wizards Jordan. And yeah, Iverson kind of announcing his arrival with that play and going on to be one of the great players in the game. Now, as far as Jordan goes, when it was announced that NBC had hired him, I don't think anybody believed that he was going to schlep to the studio and sit around like, Charles Barkley does or has been doing for all these years and will continue to do now on NBC and analyze games late into the night or God forbid, sit courtside and be a color analyst. No, the mountain comes to Muhammad. Muhammad doesn't come to the mountain. And so NBC sent Mike Tirico, who's now, I guess, their lead NBA announcer. They sent him down to Jordan's house in Florida to do the interview. And Jordan is great at this. This is, people looked at the Last Dance documentary that aired during the pandemic. And some of some of the reaction to it, and that's all we talked about because there were no sports going on, so you had that. But we were talking about something that had happened 30 years before, so it was crazy. But that was what fueled us during the pandemic. And if you look back, you might say, well, there was nothing else going on. That's why we were so interested in. No. Jordan is really good at this. And so they only aired about 3 minutes of this last night. And they're going to, I guess, roll out other parts of it as the season goes on. And I don't know how much more he's going to contribute. But Jordan sitting in a chair with his legs crossed, sitting back and answering questions from Tirico, you get the full Jordan. And even though this is less than 3 minutes, I think you're really going to dig the ending if you didn't see it last night as Tirico and Jordan aired this, or this aired on NBC with Tirico and Jordan at halftime.
You let us bring a camera or two to your place here to talk to you about basketball. Why do you want to share what you're thinking about basketball now?
It's pay it forward. I have an obligation to the game of basketball, not financially. I'm okay. I mean, I think more or less from as a basketball player is to be able to pass on messages of success and dedication to the game of basketball.
Still love it?
Love it like you wouldn't believe. I mean, in all honesty, I wish I could take a magic pill, put on shorts, and go out and play the game of basketball today. Because that's who I am. That's that type of competition, that type of competitiveness is what I live for, and I miss it. I miss that aspect of playing the game of basketball. Being able to challenge myself against what people see as great basketball. But it's better for me to be sitting here talking to you as opposed to popping my Achilles and I'm in a wheelchair for a while.
But it's nice to be able to share the things that can still make the game great going forward from your perspective.
Yeah, I think one of the things why I did this is as professional athletes, we have an obligation to pay it forward. That's part of what, this is all about is to pass it, pay it forward.
Do you ever pick up a ball and just shoot?
I haven't picked up a ball in years.
No, come on. Just like walk past, there's got to be a hoop somewhere at your place.
You don't see a hoop anywhere around here, right?
I don't. Like,
seriously,
the last time you picked up a basketball and shot it?
I was at the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
And I rented a house from the owner.
Sure.
He came over to do pictures. He had grandkids. And I was meet and greet and thank him for allowing me to stay in the house. And he had a basketball court. He says, I want you to shoot one free throw. I said, really? Now, I already paid for the house. It's not like they got to see me. So when I stepped up to shoot the free throw, it's the most nervous I've been in years.
Stop it.
In years.
Stop it. Come on.
And reason being is those kids heard the stories from the parents about what I did 30 years ago.
Right.
So their expectation is 30 years prior, and I haven't touched the basketball.
I hope you switched it.
Absolutely. I got the most gratifying that made my whole week is that I was able to please that kid, not knowing if I could.
Now, that was worth the price of admission. This is the greatest to ever do it, who played on the biggest stage, who was 6-0 in finals, thrived on pressure, loved pressure, and he was as nervous as he's ever been in years shooting a free throw in the driveway. I mean, that is an unbelievable look into the greatest competitor of all time. And Steve Young has talked about this eloquently. He said, you're the best in the world at what you do. And then it ends. And then you're not really that great at anything. What you were the greatest at, you can't do it anymore. You've put it aside. And he said he talked about a conversation that he had with Roger Staubach, and Roger Staubach said, run away, don't be near this. And Steve Young eventually did, wander back into broadcasting. I thought he was very good on ESPN. I don't know why they got rid of him, and he's still doing appearances on, like the Dan Patrick Show, and he does Tony and Mike on PTI and so forth. But what you heard there from Jordan was kind of a self-deprecating Jordan, and a Jordan that showed you a little bit of self-doubt, which he never did. Never did. That's what helped to make him so great. That was tremendous last night. I thought that was really, really good from Michael Jordan. And on top of that, to be actually willing to do that. You know, here's a guy, he paid him to rent the house. It's not like the guy said, here, you can stay here for free. He paid him to, and I'm sure it was plenty of money, to stay during the Ryder Cup. Not that Jordan should worry about money, but he could have said, hey, wait a minute, look, I'm not a trained SEAL here. You know, I played basketball a long time. I walked off the court 22 years ago for the Washington Wizards. And really, you know, he wouldn't say this, but the last time he was really Michael Jordan was when he hit the last shot against the Jazz to wrap up his 6th championship. But, you know, to hear him say that, I thought was great. And if this is going to be the format, this really might be big because the Last Dance was great. Maybe related to the fact that there weren't any sports being played during the pandemic, but as a standalone, it's stuff people still talk about, you know, and it's Jordan sitting there looking back and people saying things about him, like Gary Payton saying, you know, that they made a mistake during the finals, not letting him guard Jordan. And Jordan looks back and goes, the glove. So anyway, that was really, I thought it was overhyped going in, but having seen that, I thought, wow, that really worked out well for NBC. God knows what they're paying him. Whatever they're paying him is probably worth it. You know, probably drew a number of eyeballs to the set last night, and money seems to be everywhere in professional sports now. So if you want to slide Jordan a couple of $1 million to do a little sit-down interview with Mike Tirico, that's okay, because most of his career, he didn't make much from the NBA. He was making a lot of money from Nike, but until his last couple of years with the Bulls, he was making like $3 million a year. $3 million a year. Kevin Durant, who's 37, is going to make $90 million over the next 2 years playing for the Houston Rockets. Insane. Just insane. But if you did not see it last night, watch it on YouTube. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting part of the NBC coverage. And Tirico's great at everything he does, so it's great to have him doing play-by-play on that. And you know, I mean, it's still basketball. It's not, you know, it's not that you weren't going to watch it on TNT. And are you more likely to watch it because it's on NBC? Probably not. But it is nostalgic to hear the Roundball Rock and see the NBC coverage back. Coming up, get to some football here. Sean Payton, I thought unfairly, whacked Russell Wilson, and Wilson whacked back. We'll get to that. Plus, how big a mess are the Jets? A big mess. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Okay, the one-year marriage between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton in Denver a couple of years ago didn't work out. Wilson was then traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now he's with the New York Giants. He starts the year 0-3. Jackson Dart takes over. Looks like Jackson Dart is the quarterback of the future. Be interesting to see if Russell Wilson is traded before the deadline next week. But here's something that happened this week, which I think Payton is completely in the wrong on. You know that Denver had that wild win over the New York Giants on Sunday, 33-32. Jackson Dart looks like the real deal. They should have won the game. The kicker missed 2 extra points. He's been cut. But it was a wild shootout game, and Denver had to make an 18-point comeback in the fourth quarter to do it. So on Monday, for, I think, something that was unnecessary, unless he's just got such bad blood against Russell Wilson, but I don't think Wilson deserved this at all. This is what Sean Payton told the media.
You know, they found a little spark with that quarterback. I was talking to John Mayer not too long ago, and I said we were hoping that change would have happened long after our game.
Wow. I mean, come on, really? You have to be that petty? I mean, yeah, maybe it didn't work out. And there were stories about Russell Wilson being entitled, and he had his own office and all that. But Sean Payton had to sign off on the trade before it happened. So you have to bear some of the responsibility for that. And it wasn't like you were blind to what may have been said about him. You knew plenty of people in the league before you made the deal. So some of that's got to be on you. And I think correctly yesterday, Wilson cracked back on Twitter, X. He says, classless, but not surprised. Didn't realize you're still bounty hunting 15 and a half years later through the media. And, of course, he was talking about the Bountygate scandal, which cost him a year of pay and a year of coaching. He was kicked out of the league for a year, didn't coach in 2012. So, I think Sean Payton shouldn't be that petty about that. He's got to be the bigger guy. And, it's, Russell Wilson has been a great quarterback, maybe even a Hall of Fame quarterback. He took Seattle to back-to-back Super Bowls, probably should have won had they given the ball to Marshawn Lynch, but they didn't. And he threw in an interception. They lost the game, but he's been a 10-time Pro Bowler and, hasn't been, as far as I know, disruptive. I mean, teams still wanted him. After Payton got rid of him, Pittsburgh wanted him. After Pittsburgh decided not to bring him back, he goes to the New York Giants, and, okay, it's not working out. But that, I thought, was an unfair shot by Payton. And I'm not the biggest Russell Wilson fan. I think there are some things he could be criticized for. But there's no reason for someone who's been coaching as long as Sean Payton has and has won a Super Bowl to behave in such a petty manner. Meantime, you have the New York Jets. And it's kind of fun because we've seen this story play out here. And, here you would say that the 24 years of Dan Snyder ownership were a complete disaster. They made the playoffs a few times. They had a few winning seasons. But overall, you would say that the mess that was here from 1999 until he finally sold the team in 2023 was Snyder related. It was what there were times when we thought, oh, he's finally getting it. He's hired a GM. He's hired good people. No, it was all about Dan Snyder, and it appears to be a lot about Woody Johnson with the Jets. Here's a curious little thing. There are two winless teams now playing in sports, the Sharks and the Jets. The San Jose Sharks haven't won a game in the NHL, and now the 0-7 Jets. And this was priceless. Some reporter for a TV station in New York was doing what they call man-on-the-street stuff after the Jets' latest loss, and he came across what looked to be like a 12 or 13-year-old kid wearing a Jets jersey.
Did I get your thoughts on the game?
I hate this team. I was born into this, and I'm not going to ever – I'm always a Jets fan, but, I hate this team.
That's great. And you got to see the look on the kid's face. I was born into this. I hate this team. Now, you might say, well, he's a lucky kid. His dad's got season tickets, or at least he had tickets to take him to the game. Not every kid gets to go to a game, but he was born into a complete disaster of a team. And you wonder why? Well, this is Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets. The owners' meetings are going on in New York. This kind of snuck up on me. But Woody Johnson was in the lobby and was asked about the team's 0-7 start and said this.
What's your confidence level in Aaron to turn it around?
Well, it looks like he's turning around parts of it. It's hard when you have a quarterback with, with a rating that we got. He has the ability, but something just is not jiving. But if you look at any head coach with a quarterback like that, you're going to see similar results if you go across the league.
Oh, he's not wrong, but he's the owner. You don't say that about your starting quarterback. Yeah, Justin Fields has been bad. Some of the numbers, his average depth of target, 7.4 yards a pass. That ranks 32nd among 41 quarterbacks in the league, 41 quarterbacks who have started games. He's taking an average of 3.13 seconds to throw, the fourth longest for a starting quarterback. Yep, getting rid of the ball is key, and he's not doing that. And it appears that Tyrod Taylor, who took his place with Fields getting benched against Carolina in the second half last week, looks like he's going to be the starting quarterback. And right now, Johnson isn't going to blame Aaron Glenn because he's only had him as the head coach for 7 games. We've had one-and-done coaches, and maybe we get to that, but I can't imagine he's going to fire him halfway through the season, though we have seen coaches who haven't made it through a full season, so you never know. But again, Sean Payton shouldn't be ripping Russell Wilson, and even more so, you should not have Woody Johnson ripping the starting quarterback that he's paying. And is playing under the coach that you're supporting, Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn's not the problem, he says. It's the quarterback, and if you have a quarterback like that, you can't really do anything. Okay, you can buy that. Jeff Saturday, always good on PTI yesterday, and yesterday was again. And they started off with the team he used to play for, the Indianapolis Colts, who have the best record in the NFL.
Daniel Jones gets a lot of attention, and deservedly, for what the Colts are doing. But Jonathan Taylor leads the NFL right now, 697 yards and total touchdowns with 11. Do you think that teams can still build around a running back in this day and age?
Well, let me see. The last team that won the Super Bowl was last year was around a running back, being Saquon Barkley. So absolutely. Not only do I think it can be, I think it should be done that way, right? Let's take some pressure off the quarterback and not make him have to be our hero week in and week out. You think of it, they're scoring on 63% of their drives. Jonathan Taylor, he's an explosive back that gets you explosive plays in the run game that has taken so much pressure off of Daniel Jones. And whether it's, Tyler Warren at the tight end position, or Pittman, or Alex Pierce, or Josh Downs, everybody gets a turn. But all that starts and is predicated on the run game. Their offensive line does a fantastic job, running the ball. Tony Sperano, the junior, the offensive line coach, has done a great job in their run game scheme. Shane Steichen's calling these plays correctly. It can definitely be run through a running back, and Jonathan Taylor is having an MVP season, even though he doesn't get mentioned with all the quarterbacks.
Classic football, which we love as old people. All right, I'm behavior obsessed right now, Jeff. So I'm going to start with this. The NFL has suspended Broncos linebacker Dre Greenlaw one game for unsportsmanlike conduct toward a referee. Okay, you had a lot of experience, more than a decade, having to talk to refs in heated moments. Is there an approach? Is there a way that you approach these guys to stay away from 15 yards and a yellow flag?
Yeah, listen, you start early in the game, right? Before there's a necessity of making a call. And you get along with these guys. They're out there to do a job too. They don't want to be the story of the game. They don't want nobody wants all that attention put on a call at some point in the game, including the referees. And so, yeah, I think, listen, I don't know what was said, but to get suspended in the NFL, most referees, I don't know the guy that he yelled at. I don't know if he's had something, but it has to be pretty bad, because there's been some really nasty things said to some referees on the sideline. I've never heard of suspending. I was like, man, whatever he said had to have crossed some kind of line for them to suspend him. So obviously you want to work with these guys so when it does come down to a big-time call, you've gotten some goodwill with these guys. And we all work it, offensive line, defensive line. Everybody's trying to befriend the referees as the game goes on. But ultimately, I think on the large scale, they do a pretty good job. So I don't know what was said, but it had to be bad to get a game suspension.
This next story is so cool to me. The Baltimore Sun is reporting that the Ravens have removed a basketball hoop, ping pong table, cornhole boards, and video games from the locker room, which to me, now in this day and age, there's not a bedroom, a teenage bedroom, or a locker room that's worth a damn without these things. Jeff, is this going to work? Is this going to have influence on players in the slump the Ravens are in?
I don't think one has anything to do with the other. If they were the AFC or playing for the AFC Championship a couple of years ago, and as hot as they were last year when they lose to Buffalo, what's changed, right? Do they think all of a sudden the ping pong table has manifested into some kind of thing they can't get away from, or the video games are like? Come on, I mean, it's whatever was going on in the locker room then, nothing's changing. They're not playing well. They're not executing. And so if it's like punitive, right? Like, we're going to punish you. If you play well, we'll put this stuff back. Okay, but if it's like, no, we're too distracted, like those distractions have been around the whole time. I'm not sure what this is, but yeah, whatever guys do during their break time, I really don't care. When you show up to practice or show up to a meeting, be sharp, be a professional, have a pen in hand, paper to write on. Let's get this thing done. When you walk on the field, shoes are tied, helmets buckled, we're going to work, right? But all the rest of it, it's all ancillary in my mind.
I will get you out of here on this, and I'll stay with the behavior theme that Wilbon likes so much. Steelers left tackle Broderick Jones was trying to celebrate with Aaron Rodgers, accidentally tackled him, and Rodgers appeared upset. Whose side are you on in this?
I'm on the old man side. Self-ready. Come on, man. That's self-inflicted wounds. We can't have any of that.
Now, they're laughing about that. But if you saw the tape, if you've seen it, or you can watch it on YouTube, yeah, Rodgers has a right to be upset. You could say, well, of course, he's going to get hit like that on the field all the time. No. They brace for those hits. And when you're on the sidelines, you're not expecting your left tackle to jump on you. The guy weighs 300 pounds. And then Rodgers got up, and he was upset about that and should have been. Because if he wasn't bracing, maybe he breaks his wrist, maybe he separates his shoulder. You just don't know. Wouldn't that be something if that's what puts him out for the season? How much of an embarrassment that would be? I thought that was a pretty big deal. Saturday laughed it off because he's an offensive lineman, but I don't think if he did that to Peyton Manning, that Manning would have reacted any differently than Aaron Rodgers did over the weekend. Come on, that was a bigger deal than I think they made it into. The other thing about the ping pong table being pulled out of the Ravens facility, this came up here, and it didn't help them. The team stunk. I don't know whether they're Washington football team. They may have still been the Redskins as the way time passes. So who knows? Maybe it was as far back as 2019. But that became a thing too. Oh yeah, all the players are playing ping pong and cards. You got to get that grab ass stuff out of the locker room. Yeah. Did it help? Nah, I don't know. And I don't think it's necessarily going to help the Ravens. Big thing for the Ravens is Lamar Jackson didn't practice. And even though they're coming off a bye, so I don't know if he's going to play this week. He's going to be Cooper Rush. It might be. And with Cooper Rush, they stink. They're not that good right now with Lamar. So I don't think pulling out the ping pong table and the pool table and the foosball or whatever else they have in there is going to make a big difference. This from the owners' meeting in New York. Mark Maskey writing about this in the Post. They are looking at alternatives for the onside kick. The onside kick has morphed into something absolutely ridiculous. You got to declare that you're going to have an onside kick. An onside kick used to be effective because you could use it as a surprise. Now, it wasn't a surprise when you're at the end of the game. You need to get the ball back. But Sean Payton used it brilliantly for the second half kickoff in the Super Bowl against the Colts, and that made a difference in the game. So they've totally futzed that up, and now they're figuring out what to do with it. Well, the alternative seems even more ridiculous, but this is what's being talked about. Instead of having an onside kick, you would have the option of having 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 at your own, I think it's the 40-yard line. Let me look in here. It's somewhere in your own territory, 25, about the 25-yard line. So for your own 25, you would get the ball with one down, either 4th and 15 or 4th and 20. If you pick it up, you keep the ball. If you don't, the other team gets it, and that pretty much either ends the game or ends your chance of holding on to the ball. The head of football operations, Troy Vincent, finished his career here, as a matter of fact. He said, we're not seeing improvements that we thought would occur with the onside kick. It was one of those topics that was raised. When you look at the percentage rate, we made a slight adjustment. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that 10 to 13% recovery rate. The way it works now, that they have 10 of the 11 players on the kicking team lined up far down the field. The format requires the trailing team to declare its intention, at which point the setup reverts to the traditional kickoff alignment. Now what they're saying is just one of the 21 onside kicks that have been attempted this year have been recovered. 3 of 50 last year. They want a higher percentage. Some owners have considered this measure, where you get it either 4th and 15 or 4th and 20, as too much of a gimmick. Well, a lot of things are a gimmick right now in the NFL, including the kickoff itself. The kickoff itself, combined with guys like Brandon Aubrey, who routinely hit from 60 yards, have turned drives into something completely different. Like, if you kick the ball now out of the end zone on a touchback, whereas it used to be years ago, the 20-yard line, then the 25, now it's the 35. And if you kick it in the landing zone, if you're not getting it out to the 30, you're doing something wrong. So if you get it out to the 35 with the touchback, not that many yards need to be picked up to attempt a 60-yard field goal. And I wonder if even the strategy on that changes to some degree. Sure, you're always trying to score touchdowns, but with the ease that you can get field goals, I don't know. So this is something that's going to be voted on when they have the meetings again in the spring. The other thing that's going to be voted on, and hopefully it's done away with, is the tush push. Now, the pushback from the league on this, including Vincent, who spent most of his career with the Eagles, if that means anything, is that they're not really saying, yeah, this tush push thing isn't working. Remember early in the season when this was pretty good by Brady, pointing out that there were false starts all the time by the Eagles when they were playing against the Chiefs, and so that called for the league to make a tighter look at this. Chiefs lost the game, of course. League doesn't like that, but I don't know how much that effect that has had. But this is what Vincent said yesterday at the owners' meeting. There really hasn't been much discussion internally. One of the things that I've learned and what we've observed has been said by officials the last 2 years when we've discussed the push play. It's very difficult to officiate in real time. Sometimes on the replay we see in some games the guard jumped, the guard moved, or the guard was in the neutral zone, or someone else was in the neutral zone. It's really hard for that line judge to identify that based off where he's at looking down on the line of scrimmage. Hey, at the end of the day, there's a team that still does well. We've seen other people have versions of it, but from an officiating standpoint, we're going to try and get better at identifying when someone's in the neutral zone or when someone leaves a little bit early. Now, the Packers put up a proposal back in May and they'll meet again on this May. The proposal to get rid of it. It fell 2 votes short. I think there's enough push, no pun intended, but I think there's enough here now to get rid of it, and I think they should, because it's not a football play. It's a rugby play, and it looks stupid, and I don't think it's good for the game of football. Yeah, the Eagles should get credit for using the rules to their advantage. They're not breaking any rules, but I would like to see the tush push go away. Coming up, Ralph Sampson. You don't hear much from Ralph Sampson, but Ralph Sampson, still very thin. Nickname was Stick. And he was on All the Smoke podcast with a very cool story about getting $1 million in a suitcase opened up in his house. It was his for the taking. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So with all the podcasts that are out there and all the time in the world to yak and yak and yak, some pretty good stories float to the surface. This one was not expecting, but popped up on YouTube as I was surfing around. Ralph Sampson. Ralph Sampson is one of those guys who came along too soon. He's 7'4". He's very, very thin, and he wanted to basically be a guard. He was really too thin to play inside when it was a big man dominated league. That's what everybody was chasing. The next great big man, the next great Kareem, the next great Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, whatever. And Sampson was a guy who was better suited to be what Victor Wembanyama is now, but. The three-point shot was new in the NBA when he came in. There weren't guys like Steph Curry hoisting it up from near half court, and he was expected to play down low, and his body eventually broke down. He was a good player, not the expectation that most had for him when he was in college, when he was the 3-time player of the year. And you say, well, how could he be 3-time player of the year? Who would stay that long? He did. That was a shock, too, because all 4 years, people were begging him to come out, particularly Red Auerbach, who thought he was going to change the game. And had he operated under today's rules, he might have, because he had that kind of skill. But, he was expected to play down low. He played with Akeem Olajuwon. That's what really led to the draft lottery being created. That's a whole nother story. But, those years when he was at Virginia and his freshman year led them to the NIT championship. They beat Kevin McHale in Minnesota in the title game. And that's when the NBA came a-knocking. And the one who did the most knocking, the loudest knocking, was a man by the name of Arnold Red Auerbach, as he told the All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson.
Red Auerbach came to the house with $1 million in a briefcase. put it on the kitchen table and said, you can play with the Mighty Boston Celtics if you come to out this year. Kevin McHale wouldn't have gone to the league.
Yeah, you would have changed the course of history for them.
Well, it's every year.
Yeah.
That'll be changed. The next year, Isaiah was the first 2 high school athletes to make a Pan American Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
And Puerto Rico. So you go back and look at Bobby Knight was the coach, and Krzyzewski was the assistant coach. And so stories there. I go early, I work out, I train, and Krzyzewski was teaching me how to do the Bobby Knight system, right? Bobby Knight gets into the practice, and he called me out as a young kid. If you can't your ass can't make it from the baseline to baseline and back in 10 seconds, I'm sending your ass home. I made it in 7.
Mm-hmm.
I could run, so I made it in 7. So he tried to leave an example, but go back in history, you can see it. We in Puerto Rico, check this out. We're in Puerto Rico getting ready to play a game. I was going to practice, and we had a time like 1 o'clock to be on the court, and the girls' team was like 10 minutes over. So Bobby goes down and talks to the police officer and say, they got to get off the court. He's screaming and hollering. He's moving his thing, whatever, and he does like this, boom, smacks the cop.
Bobby Knight does.
And smacks the cop. So we got to come out of the Olympic Village and go get sequestered in a hotel. Because now we got security. You have to look it up, but it's there. But that whole thing, he's smacking people. So, out there's trying to figure it out. But going back to the story, if I came on my second year, we went to the national title. We got beat by North Carolina. Indiana won the national title that year, the year that Reagan got shot. If I came out that year, I was there like, who's coming out? We didn't have cell phone. We had each other's home number. You coming out, I'm coming out. But he might not have gone to Detroit. And then next year, same thing with the Lakers and Worthy.
Wow.
If they came out. But if I didn't know, I'm going to flip. I'm going to go to the Lakers. I'm going to go to Indiana. And we know how the league is.
Right.
I tell people, how did Patrick Ewing end up in New York?
Mm-hmm.
How did Magic end up in the Lakers? And how did Bird end up in Celtics?
How LeBron ended up with Cleveland.
It's a chess game with the league, right? They know they got, you got to have those teams, right? You got to have those rivalries. So some people might say it's fixed. And maybe it may not be. I can't say that it is or not, but the league is the best thing in the world, basketball-wise, which we know and love.
Right.
And the game is the game.
So you had, probably earlier, but starting your freshman year in college, each year you could have left. What kept you coming back? You just didn't feel like you were ready yet?
Well, first year I wasn't ready.
Okay.
I came into college at 198 pounds.
So and you said Red Auerbach came to you. This is supposed to be later, but you already spoke on it, so we might as well just run with it. He came to the house with $1 million briefcase. So potentially picking you at what pick would have been? Did they have the number
First
1
pick?
And so he felt you were ready for the number 1 pick. You just didn't feel like you were ready as the number 1 pick.
Okay, you go in there with Chief, Perry.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
And ML Carter, my body wasn't ready.
Okay.
Today they take a guy and Embiid and all that. Okay, you're not quite ready. We're not going to play you as
Develop
much.
you.
We're going to sit you on the sideline. Like they didn't care about that.
Throwing you in
Red
the fire.
or that suitcase, one of them was going to stay here. Both of y'all ain't leaving.
Both ain't leaving. Okay, the briefcase open, right? And there's $100 bills on top of the briefcase. But you don't know what's under it because he won't let you touch it. But there's pictures of him coming in the house.
Tyrone, come in. Kicking it down. You don't know us.
And he had Larry Fitzgerald there. Mr. Fitzgerald that owned the team as well. But it is what it is.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. He turned down $1 million, and that's a Don King move. He used to do that with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson would get wind of Don King cheating him out of a lot of money. King would show up at his house and dump $100,000 on his bed and say, "Here." In this case, he had $1 million in cash. Now, Ralph doesn't exactly have it lined up as to where he would have gone. The Celtics did have the number 1 pick in 1980, which was the end of Ralph's freshman year. He came to Virginia in 1979. What happened was Joe Barry Carroll coming out of Purdue. They had made the final, and Joe Barry Carroll they were in the Final Four, I guess, and they and he was traded. His rights were traded by the Celtics to the Golden State Warriors, who had taken Kevin McHale, number 3, and they sent the Celtics McHale and Parrish, who teamed up with Bird, and the rest is history. Would Red have traded Ralph Sampson for Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish? I don't know. Would he have just said, because he obviously was enamored with him, so would he have just said, we're going to play Ralph and Bird together and see what happens there? I don't know. That might have been an interesting thing. Then he talks about possibly coming out in 1981. Isaiah Thomas was not the number one pick of the 81 draft. That was Mark Aguirre, who went to Dallas. Isaiah went number 2 to Detroit. Dallas certainly would have taken Ralph Sampson had he come out. I was actually working in Dallas at the time. Norm Sanju was the GM. He kept trading his veteran players to Cleveland, to Ted Stepien, so he could get high draft picks. He wanted Patrick Ewing when he came out, and of course they came up with the lottery that year, and Dallas didn't get him. But Sampson would have gone to the Dallas Mavericks in 1982, not to Detroit. Isaiah probably would have still gone number 2 or number 3. Who knows? Aguirre might have gone to Detroit in that deal. Whatever. Then after his junior year, which would have been 1982, yes, James Worthy went to the Lakers. Would the Lakers, with Kareem, with still gas left in the tank, Kareem played through 1989, I think. Would they have taken Sampson? Would they have gone Twin Towers? Maybe. But they were like similar builds. And, I don't know. Maybe they might have made that work. I don't know. But Worthy finishing on the break with Magic, that was magic. So we didn't have that. And then 1983, he comes out, and Houston has the number 1 pick. Houston takes him. And then what really changed for the NBA, with Ralph Sampson, they still finished with the worst record in the league because they wanted to take Akeem Olajuwon in 1984, and that's when the NBA said, wait a minute, we got to do something about this tanking. So they came up with the draft lottery for 1985, and that was the 7 teams that didn't make the playoffs, so fewer teams in the league then. And the 7 teams that didn't make the playoffs, they put the envelopes in the drum, and you see, and to this day, there's controversy about the frozen envelope or the one with the bent corner or whatever, the one that David Stern pulled out and was the New York Knicks. But the what-if story on Ralph Sampson is really cool. What if he'd come out after his freshman year? What if he'd come out after his sophomore year? What if he'd come out after his junior year? Stayed all 4 years, 3-time player of the year. Pretty amazing. Coming up, we will get to what happened 50 years ago today as the World Football League went belly up.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Graham is coming up at 11 o'clock. 50 years ago today, the World Football League bit the dust. You say you've never heard of the World Football League. Maybe the USFL. Remember the USFL? You probably remember that. And the story of how they sued the NFL and actually won, but the damages were $3 and they had to say goodbye. The World Football League started in 1974. They wanted to start in 1975, but the reason they jumped to 1974 was they saw opportunity. There was a players' strike that year, and there was uncertainty about the season. So the USFL said, well, if there's no football, we'll just jump in there. Well, might have been a little fast, but, maybe they were doomed from the start. The leader of this WFL, the mover and shaker getting it off the ground, was Gary Davidson, a California lawyer, and he had been involved in startups before, and I would say successful. The American Basketball Association, which had 4 teams merge with the NBA, and the World Hockey Association, which had teams merge with the NHL. So, in that regard, he had some success. That's always the goal of these startup leagues, so they can merge with others. So Davidson, gets this thing off the ground. He's got a number of investors, including a pretty big one, John Bassett, whose family was involved in Canadian Football League. They owned the Toronto Argonauts. They owned a couple of newspapers. He had a daughter who was a tennis star, Carling Bassett. He later owned a USFL team, the Tampa Bay Bandits, coached, by the way, by Steve Spurrier. But anyway, there was enough to get this off the ground. They had some television. And in 1974, they started to raid the NFL and pick up players who had NFL experience, some names, and get off the ground, which they did. They launched this league in 1974. They had an 18-game schedule. We'll have an 18-game schedule in the NFL sooner or later. But there was a team that was supposed to play in Washington, and they were going to be called the Washington Capitals. Well, the Capitals were already coming in as an expansion team in 1974, so they couldn't call them that. So they came up with a name the team contest, and the Ambassadors was the name. And then there was this big fight whether they could play at RFK Stadium, and Edward Bennett Williams, who was running the team at the time, fought that off, so they didn't really have a place to play. Then there was going to be maybe a place in Baltimore, and they would become the Baltimore Washington Ambassadors. And the owner of the team, Joe Wheeler, offered Colts quarterback Johnny Unitas a contract to become the head coach and general manager. Unitas had just wrapped up his career with the San Diego Chargers, but he turned him down. So he turned to Jack Pardee, who was very similar. Jack Pardee played his last season in Washington, 1972. He was an assistant coach under George Allen in 73. So he gets the job as head coach of what became the Florida Blazers. They couldn't get a place to play in Washington or Baltimore, so the Ambassadors became the Florida Blazers with Pardee as the head coach. And this is important because in that first season, well, they only had one full season, but in the 74 season, he's the coach of the Florida Blazers, gets them to the championship game against the Birmingham Americans, loses, but they were not getting paid. The league was already in deep financial trouble in the first year, and the Blazer players were playing for free. And they thought, well, Pardee must be a hell of a coach to get them to the championship game. And that's what landed him the job the next year as coach of the Chicago Bears. 2 years removed from his playing career, he's coaching the head coach of the Chicago Bears with a rookie by the name of Walter Payton. But it ultimately didn't work out. They made a big swing. The Toronto Northmen, led by Bassett, signed Dolphin stars Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, and Paul Warfield to an unbelievable contract, $3.5 million. That was amazing money 50 years ago. But they wound up playing half a season. The league went belly up, and this was Bill Plant on CBS delivering the news.
When the end came, some teams had fewer than 3,000 paying their way in. And some of those were talent scouts from NFL teams looking for players to stock their rosters. Why didn't it all work out? There are a number of answers. The WFL started up just as the nation's economy turned down. And the millionaires bankrolling the teams decided that the way to remain millionaires was to cut their losses.
The governors of the World Football League have determined that this enormous capital expenditure, in light of an unstable economy in our nation, continuing inflation, no assurance of national television revenues, and a softening market for new leagues and professional sports, was an unwise investment.
Probably most important, though, was the miscalculation that football-hungry Americans would eat up still more pro football. They didn't. They just chewed on the WFL for a while and decided that they didn't like the taste. Bill Plant, CBS News, New York.
So that left some of these stars without a place to play, including Zonka, including Kick, and including Paul Warfield, who was asked after this announcement that the league was folding, what now?
That's a question that's pretty difficult to answer at this particular time because when the 1976 season does roll around, there are a few contractual problems that will have to be worked out, especially in my case. I had a multi-year contract with the Memphis Southmen with John Bassett, who's the owner of that football club, and until these problems can be resolved legally, my status is a little bit uncertain.
If things can be straightened out, would you like to go back to Cleveland and play some ball there, considering the other entanglements don't entrap you?
Well, if things can be worked out, I think that I would prefer to play in Cleveland. I am still a resident of Cleveland. As I said, my home is there, and I've had very fond memories of playing in that city. And although the team is down right now, I think it would be a challenge to play with that organization again at this particular time, and I would be willing to accept that challenge.
And that's what happened. Paul Warfield went back to Cleveland, played 2 more years. Larry Zonka wound up with the New York Giants, was actually involved in that very famous Herman Edwards return, the miracle at the Meadowlands. He was the one who fumbled in the exchange with Joe Pisarcik. Jim Kick wound up finishing his career with the Redskins. Also, Calvin Hill, who had left the Dallas Cowboys to go with the Hawaii Hawaiians, winds up playing for George Allen and the Redskins for a few years. There was some of that. Some of those guys emerged. But I think the most famous player ever to come out of the World Football League, and he got his fame much later on, was Vince Papale. Vince Papale, if you saw the movie Invincible, was not playing his first football when he played for the Philadelphia Eagles, his first professional football. He had actually been a track star, I believe, at Villanova, and had played with the Philadelphia Bell, which was a World Football League team, and when that league folded, that's when he had the tryout with the Eagles in 1976. They played with the facts a little bit for the movie, but he did make the Eagles in an open tryout, and of course became the famous special teams player for them. But the legacy of the World Football League is crazy. I mean, you think of the guys like Jack Pardee, who got their start there, the players who came out of there and later played in the NFL, the aging guys who were there. Like there was a John Matuzak story. He was signed by, I believe, the Houston team, and he got out on the field for a couple of plays, and then there was an injunction because the Oilers held his contract. I mean, all kinds of stuff that was happening with them. They did have some TV. It was syndicated TV, but they didn't have enough, to keep the league afloat. And they also had this idea that they were going to have different colored pants for the different players. Like the wide receivers would wear orange pants and the running backs would wear blue. I mean, they were coming up with anything they could to keep it afloat. But, towards the end, nobody's showing up for the games, and there's not enough money to keep it afloat. And it has to go under. But I have a soft spot for the World Football League. I remember watching some of the games on TV, and I also remember the interest in the Washington Ambassadors. That you couldn't get tickets to the Redskins in those days, but if the Washington Ambassadors were playing at RFK Stadium with Jack Pardee as the coach, maybe I would be interested in going. Who knows? One quick thing on the Angels hire as the manager, Kurt Suzuki, the catcher here, when they won the World Series. Yeah, he's got Anthony Rendon on the roster. 2 more years at $35 million a year. Anthony Rendon has been with the Angels for 5 years after leaving the Nats. He has never played more than 58 games. He's hit .242, 22 homers, 125 runs batted in. Yeah, Kurt, good luck motivating that guy who's shown no inclination to be interested in playing with the Angels. It is what it is, as we like to say. All right, Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.